Everyone knows that Amelia Earhart was a pioneer in the world of aviation, but most don't realize that she was also an author, a fashion designer, and so much more. She made history by breaking the rules, setting her own records, and pursuing her dreams. So, today we're going to take a look at the daring life of Amelia Earhart. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel. After that, leave a comment and let us know what other trailblazing women you would like to hear about. Now, please return your tray tables to their upright position and prepare for takeoff. Amelia Earhart was born in Kansas in 1897, the oldest of 2 daughters. Her mother didn't believe in raising her children to be proper and dainty little girls. Instead, they wore pants, known as bloomers, and had plenty of freedom to, well, bloom. Before we can walk, we must learn to crawl. And before we can fly, we must learn to ride a sled off the side of a roof. At least that was Amelia's path. On a childhood trip to St. Louis, Earhart saw her first roller coaster, and she was immediately intrigued. To satisfy her craving for the height and speed of the wooden contraption, in 1904, she and her uncle built a roller coaster-like ramp and attached it to the roof of her family's shed. Good thing she didn't see Cedar Point first. Earhart fearlessly went on her ramp's maiden voyage in a wooden box. She wound up with a tear in her clothes and a bruised lip, but she must have loved it because she declared the experience to be just like flying. And we all know how she felt about flying. It seems that from the beginning, Earhart wanted to do things her own way. She spent her free time climbing trees, sledding down hills, and doing things that were generally considered boy stuff. Of course, this all set the scene for what came later in life. Because, like another famous Kansas resident, Earhart wanted to see what was over the rainbow. Only rather than wait for a twister to take her there, she would set her sights on breaking into the male-dominated world of aviation herself. The Equal Rights Amendment, the proposed amendment to the Constitution that would guarantee women equal rights, that never actually got passed, first started getting kicked around in the early 1920s and was officially presented to Congress in 1923. And Amelia Earhart was one of the first and most ardent supporters. Earhart was also a vocal member of the National Women's Party, which was created to get women the right to vote, which was granted by the 19th Amendment in 1920. So she wasn't just a trailblazer in the field of aviation. Now, it's one thing to be a trailblazer, but it's another thing to reach back and help others follow the trail you've blazed. After her famous transatlantic flight, Earhart spent some time in Illinois, counseling women enrolled at Purdue University and helping them choose their ideal career paths. She was also a member of the 99s, a group of female pilots that advanced the cause of women in aviation. Not content in her successes alone, Earhart made it one of her missions to motivate and inspire the young women around her, making her one of the original icons of female empowerment, like Taylor Swift with a pilot's license. In 1918, the Spanish flu absolutely ravaged the United States. Over 500 million people were infected worldwide, and an estimated 100 million perished, most of whom were healthy adults without any previous medical problems. Most famously, the plague claimed the life of Edward Cullen. Like so many before her, Amelia Earhart caught this flu, but she survived. She was plagued by sinus problems afterward, needing a year to recuperate, but she didn't let that stop her from achieving her dreams, even if she probably had to keep a handkerchief handy for the rest of her life. Hey, handkerchiefs are classy. In 1920, Earhart and her father visited an airfield in Long Beach, California. Maybe the aquarium was closed. Whatever the case, it was there that Earhart experienced something that would change her life forever. A flight with a pilot named Frank Hawks, who, despite how his name sounds, was a real guy and not a G.I. Joe character. Earhart later reflected on her first foray away from Earth, claiming, "By the time I had got 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly." That's the same kind of confidence that led many of us to jump off the bookcase while wearing a Superman cape. The young Earhart was determined to learn how to fly an airplane on her own, come hell or high water. So, in order to afford the lessons, Earhart worked as a truck driver, a stenographer, and a photographer. Flying is not cheap, and Microsoft Flight Simulator had not been invented yet. She took to flying like that one friend of yours who was annoyingly good at everything. Earhart managed to set world records from her airplane and became a celebrity, using product endorsements to fund future flights. She even had her own luggage line. Earhart's signature gender-bending look of closely cropped hair, homemade duds, and tough leather bomber jackets earned her a place as an editor at Cosmopolitan magazine. But because she never stopped doing things her own way, instead of writing columns that focused on her clothes, she used her post to extol the virtues of air travel. Earhart became the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic Ocean on May 20, 1932. She spent 14 hours in the air in a direct flight from Newfoundland to Ireland. But that was not her original plan. The intended destination was actually Paris, France, but it had to be changed to a closer destination due to icy weather, and you can't put snow chains on plane wheels. We've tried. But Earhart was never satisfied with single feats of prowess. So, one-upping herself, she later became the first person to fly across both the Atlantic and Pacific. You can't help but imagine that if she had lived longer, those Indian and Arctic oceans would have had it coming next. Earhart was no stranger to setting aeronautical records. On top of her many impressive accomplishments, Earhart was the first person to fly solo from Honolulu to Oakland, was the first person to fly solo from Los Angeles to Mexico City, and set 7 speed and distance aviation records. If you've got 7 Jersey Mike's punch cards completely full, you get it. Now, sometimes you just can't stop trying something until you get it right. For a lot of us, that means not giving up on a fitness goal or getting through every episode of Star Trek Voyager. For Amelia Earhart, for whom Star Trek did not yet exist, it meant flying around the world no matter what the cost. In 1937, she made her first attempt at flying around the globe. She and her co-pilot, Fred Noonan, flew to Hawaii from Oakland, but stopped due to technical difficulties. But Earhart refused to give up. She tried again a few months later after her airplane, a Lockheed Electra, sponsored by Purdue University, was repaired. This time, they flew in the opposite direction, heading from Miami over Africa, India, and South Asia. They made it a total of 22,000 miles, but the remaining 7,000 miles had to be flown over a precarious expanse of the Pacific Ocean, and the plane disappeared just 800 miles in. Earhart was never seen or heard from again, and her plane has never been found. Although, to be honest, we have a pretty good idea where it is. Earhart's adventurous image and mysterious fate sparked decades of questions and theories about the circumstances of her disappearance, like an adventure serial come to life. Most authorities conclude that she and her navigator, Fred Noonan, crashed into the ocean on their way to Howland Island. But not everyone is convinced. There are those who believe the duo managed to make it to an island where they lived as castaways. Now, many islands in the area, including Howland, have been repeatedly searched for any evidence that the 2 intrepid flyers might have survived their crash. Nothing definitive has ever been found. But the discovery of a woman's skeleton and a piece of an airplane understandably got historians and Earhart admirers excited. These remains were found on Nikumaroro Island, an uninhabited part of Kiribati. If the bones and pieces of metal turn out to belong to Earhart, they are proof that she survived for some time on the island, either alongside Noonan or on her own. If only she'd had a volleyball to keep her company. So here's what we know. In 1940, a number of bones were found on the remote island of Nikumaroro in the South Pacific. At the time, they were examined by a Dr. D.W. Hoodless, who we can safely presume was not wearing a hood. After conducting a number of experiments on the bones, Hoodless concluded they were those of a man. However, in March of 2018, University of Tennessee researchers released new information indicating that the bones were not only those of a woman, but in fact belonged to Earhart. According to the university, the bones have more similarity to Earhart than to 99% of individuals in a large reference sample. How does the University of Tennessee have so many bones on hand? That's gonna be another video. Forensic anthropologist Richard Jantz, the co-creator of 4DISC, a computer program that estimates various genetic traits from skeletal measurements, re-examined the bones using modern techniques and determined that Hoodless had been mistaken. And given that his program is used by nearly every board-certified forensic anthropologist in the US and around the world, it seems safe to take him at his word. Based on his findings, Jantz reported that Earhart was known to have been in the area of Nikumaroro Island. She went missing, and human remains were discovered, which are entirely consistent with her and inconsistent with most other people. The bones were believed to be from a person 6 years older than Earhart was when she vanished, implying she survived alone on the island for at least 6 years, the exact number of seasons of Lost. So, with these findings, has the long mystery of Amelia Earhart's whereabouts finally been put to rest? Well, maybe. In 2015, Josh Gates, the host of a show called Expedition Amelia, DNA tested fragments believed to be from the Earhart bones and conclusively determined they were from a man. He did not say which one. So, like Amelia Earhart's determination to become one of the greatest pilots in history, the search for what happened to her continues. So what do you think? Does Amelia Earhart's story inspire you? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.